Well, as it turns out, there's been another email leak involved with secret messages being released to the public and messages being stolen off of a server that nobody really knew about, and great embarrassment and so on. Only this time it's not national secrets. Those are kind of trivial. That's just extremely careless handling. This time it's really important. It's what's going on backstage at the Democratic National Committee. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and this is your right angle on the DNC email scandal leak. And I'd like to subtitle this episode, ladies and gentlemen, Welcome to Our World. What do I mean by that? Well, we've been claiming as conservatives for decades now that the press is, in fact, essentially the audiovisual department for the Democratic National Party. And through this email thing, we discover that Debbie Wasserman Schultz can just say, stop it, knock it off. You've got to stop this. And the press will simply go, oh, yes, ma'am, I'm terribly sorry. We find out that the Washington Post is co-hosting fundraisers for the Democratic National Committee, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. It never ends. Steve, let's start with you.
Sure.
Not too long ago, Donald Trump just threw a couple people out of the press corps. Just said, I don't buy your press credentials. I don't consider you're a reporter. I think my favorite Donald Trump moment so far is when somebody asked him a leading question, and he said, "Where are you from?" And they said, "CNN." He went, "CNN." But we actually have documentary evidence now that this is in fact going on. But here's my question for you, Steve. No one believed it. Everybody thought it was just Republicans just kind of, doing our typical hair on fire conspiracy theory things and whining and crying. But now it's Bernie. It's Bernie. It's Bernie who's the victim of all this corruption. It's Bernie who's the victim of this press manipulation. It's Bernie who's a victim of these false stories and false protests. Do you think that this is going to get through to these people, Steve? Or do you think that it's just going to bounce off their heads?
Well, what I find most interesting is, for all the talk about the Republican establishment, it was impotent in the face of a populist figure in the form of Donald Trump. The Democratic establishment, however, is real, it is powerful, and it works. They wanted Bernie out. They wanted Clinton to be the nominee, and if that had to cost Debbie Wasserman Schultz her job, well, so be it. But the Democratic establishment got whatever they wanted, and it's a well-functioning machine. As well-functioning as any political party can be. But the bigger picture on this, I think, is what's really fascinating. Because you've got Clinton News Network, CNN, that was providing nice coverage of Saddam Hussein in exchange for access to Iraq. And the Democrats kind of laughed that off as no big deal. Hillary Clinton keeping a compromised server in her bathroom, avoiding the Freedom of Information Act, having Moscow read her emails in real time, or at best almost real time. And that's a non-story. She was just careless. She's frequently confused and all that kind of thing. Just a little careless. They wanted to sweep that under the rug as best they could. But then when their own private dirty laundry gets aired by WikiLeaks, courtesy of the Russians, suddenly Russians are the big bear again, threatening world peace, and oh my gosh, this kind of thing has to stop. They don't care about getting the truth out of Iraq. They don't care about national security. They don't care about the Secretary of State being held accountable to the laws of the land. But when it comes to their own dirty laundry, boy, you better believe they care, and they care deeply.
That's kind of an interesting take, is pretty much my take too. So Scotty, let me ask you about the second part of this question that I don't hear anybody talking about. So we discover that WikiLeaks, perhaps with the assistance of the Russians, was able to crack into the top secret and highly secure Democratic National Committee server. And they were able to steal large numbers of emails and put them on the internet. The Russians had a pretty much easy time getting this information. So why is it, I wonder, that everybody in the Democratic Party is having an absolute cow over the fact that some of their details of, as Steve said, their dirty laundry regarding their way they treated Bernie is cause for running around with their hair on fire. But when Hillary Clinton puts top secret and above top secret information on a far less secure server, if the Russians can read the DNC server, you got a pretty good chance that the Russians can read the ClintonFoundation.org server, which didn't even have the routine security updates. It's kind of odd, isn't it, that these Democrats think it's worse that an email saying, you know what, we really do collude with the press, is more damaging to them than irrefutable proof that Hillary Clinton revealed top secret and above top secret national security emails over the course of 4 years.
And from what I understand, and this is early stage of this game, so more details will come in. I'm sure there'll be deepening probe by the FBI is certainly going to go after this hard to find out exactly what happened and why it was so vulnerable. But my understanding is that Edward Snowden I've seen him tweeting out basically saying, hey, the NSA should reveal, who got into this and how they got into it and stuff like that. But some cybersecurity experts are apparently saying that there were actually 2 different Russian hackers in the DNC's underwear. So, I mean, this is like you're burglarizing somebody's house and you run into another burglar that you don't even know. Because it was so easy to get in, it was such a ripe target, the 2 of you got in there to rob the place. And so you got that going on. Certainly, Snowden is also suggesting that he's got stuff already that could put Hillary Clinton in jail, and who knows when that'll come out. There have been suggestions, of course, on the left. Robbie Mook told CNN. Robbie Mook is Clinton's campaign manager. Told CNN that he's trying to imply that there's a connection between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump because it benefits Trump that these Russian hackers got in there and spilled this stuff all over the place. And so instead of focusing on the actual goings-on of the DNC and what these emails reveal, let's talk about the possibility that Donald Trump is the Richard Nixon, covering up the Watergate break-in. So all of that going on. But we need to keep in mind one thing. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the former chairman now of the DNC, did not lose her job because Bernie Sanders didn't get the nomination, or even because she and her colleagues were working to ensure that Bernie Sanders didn't get the nomination, or even because some major donors were being talked about behind the scenes in the most crass and disgusting terms and denigrating terms about talking about putting a major donor in the, I can't even say the word, in the worst corner. And it was like a reference to excrement, in the worst corner that they could find. None of that lost Debbie Wasserman Schultz her job. What got her fired, what got her pushed out of the DNC was the fact that she let the world see the way the Democratic National Committee actually operates. She let the truth get out. That's her crime, not any of the things that we see as crimes.
That's right. And once it was revealed to the world the extent of this corruption, manipulation, fraud, and all the rest of it, she was immediately hired by Hillary Clinton to run her campaign. Does anybody, I certainly can't be the only person who sees the optics of this. And ladies and gentlemen, as it turns out, I'm not. I've seen lately in the last several days YouTube videos from Bernie supporters, and not just Bernie supporters, just rank and file Democrats, who are absolutely outraged at this. Absolutely outraged. They're starting a Never Hillary movement. She's being booed at her own convention. You got to hand it to WikiLeaks. They released that information at exactly the right time. Exactly the right time. If they say they've got enough to get Hillary indicted, maybe they'll release that 3 weeks before the election. I don't know what good it's going to do because the FBI has enough information to get her indicted, and they didn't recommend charges either. But I think the main takeaway here is this. I do want to say to the progressives out there, to the Bernie supporters out there, because I know we have millions of them watching the show, welcome to our world, right? You're outraged. You're outraged because mechanical strings were pulled behind the scenes, and it cost you votes, and it cost you your voice, and it cost you your say in this democracy, destroyed your faith in this government. You found out that press was covering for Hillary Clinton and setting up stories against your candidate, Bernie Sanders, routinely. You found out that the Clinton machine was essentially just rigging the whole thing for votes. The whole idea of superdelegates is to make sure that the party gets the person they want and not the one that the people elect. If all of this is true, and it is true, and if you're angry at the DNC for this, then just try for a moment to understand what it's like to have been a conservative for the last 30 years, to be saying that this stuff goes on daily, and for us to finally have the documentary evidence that everything that we said is in fact true, and it goes much, much, much deeper than that. I don't know. I think that the tide on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, of people who are so fed up with the system and who see the system as corrupt and irreparably corrupt, that all, to me, looks good for Donald Trump and looks bad for the most insider in the history of this country, and without question, the most corrupt person ever running for president of the United States, and that'd be Hillary Rotten Clinton, to use Donald Trump's effective phase. Donald's up a little bit now, and he's done nothing but fight Republicans so far. When he starts fighting Democrats, he's going to bring all this stuff up, and if the FBI doesn't bring charges against her, he will. He will do it in the debates. It's going to be a bloodbath, is what I'm starting to think. Couldn't happen to a nicer person. I just wish it was being done by somebody I liked a little better. But, it's the strangest year in election history. I don't think we've ever seen anything like it or see its like again. So stay tuned for more, and as we try to help you figure out all this stuff. All of this is brought to us by the members at BillWhittle.com. We're very grateful for your membership. Thank you for letting us keep the word getting out there fearlessly. And for Steve Green, Scott Ott, and the rest of the Right Angle team, I'm Bill Whittle. We'll see you next time.